In the twilight of a fading empire, in the year 1775, a child was born in the hallowed halls of the Red Fort in Delhi. His name was Abu Zafar Siraj-ud-Din Muhammad, later known as Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last flicker of the mighty Mughal dynasty. But unlike his ancestors, his empire was one in name only. Where once emperors commanded armies and built wonders, Zafar inherited a crown of thorns, held up by British mercy and fading traditions. He was not born to rule. In fact, he only became emperor in 1837 at the age of 62, long after his father Akbar Shah II had died. The East India Company held the real power, and Zafar was little more than a poet-king confined to a palace, with no army, no wealth, and no control beyond the city walls of Delhi. Yet Zafar was no ordinary ruler. He was a man of deep feeling, a mystic, a calligrapher, and a poet of great depth. His court became a center of Urdu literature and culture, where poets like Ghalib, Zauq, and Dog found refuge. But the man behind the verses was tired of watching his world crumble, his power stolen, his dynasty mocked. He married multiple wives, but the internal palace politics were poisoned with jealousy and manipulation. His sons fought each other, not for power, but for survival. The British had already declared that the Mughal dynasty would die with him. His children would be commoners after his death. He watched helpless as the British chipped away not just at his kingdom, but at his identity. Then came 1857, the year that would seal his fate. The Indian sepoys rebelled against the British, and they came to Zafar, begging him to lead them. They saw him as a symbol, the legitimate emperor of Hindustan. Hesitant and old, he agreed, not out of ambition, but out of duty to his people and ancestors. For a brief, burning moment, it felt like the empire had returned. The Red Fort echoed with drums of rebellion, but it was an illusion. The British retaliated with brutal force. The rebellion was crushed, Delhi was ravaged, and Zafar's own sons were captured and executed, shot dead by a British officer, their bodies left to rot. When Zafar was finally taken prisoner, he was an old man with trembling hands and hollow eyes. He was put on trial for treason, though all he had done was wear a crown that no longer ruled. In a final act of humiliation, the British exiled him to Rangoon, now Yangon, Myanmar. There, in a foreign land, the last emperor of a once glorious empire lived in a small, crumbling house, with barely enough to eat. His final poems were soaked in sorrow. He wrote, "Na kisi ki aankh ka noor hoon, na kisi ke dil ka qarar hoon, na nishati puti yati jinkane," which means, I am neither the light of anyone's eyes nor the comfort of anyone's heart. In 1862, Bahadur Shah Zafar died in exile, far from his homeland, buried in an unmarked grave. No royal ceremony, no final salute, just a forgotten ending to a once great bloodline. For more information, subscribe.